Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I am Katie Phillips. I'm the founder of the School of Self-Love, and I'm the host of the My Menopause interview series, which is a week-long online virtual conference running all of this week, talking all things menopause. And today the focus of the conversation is largely around menopause in the workplace. But as you're going to discover, and if you were on the interview previously, you'll see that we talk about so much more than that. I don't think we women can possibly restrict ourselves to one little topical conversation. We don't like to be boxed, do we? So it is my absolute pleasure and honor and privilege to introduce you to the gorgeous Debs de Vries. Hi.
Hello, Katie. Hello, everybody. What an honor and excitement it is for me to be here this morning. So thank you for doing this, Katie, for all of us.
You're welcome. And you're bathed in beautiful sunlight, which I love.
I am.
Gorgeous. So I'm going to kick off by just reading out your bio, if that's okay, Debs, just to share with everybody just who you are, and then we'll dive into some questions. So first of all, to introduce Debs de Vries, she is a peri-menopause mentor. She's been gifted with a lifetime of practices and skills that have magically synthesized themselves into a radical new approach to perimenopause support. A combination of 30 years as a professional and personal skills coach, melded with yoga teaching, Reiki Mastership, Transference Healing Mystery School graduation, and astrology to serve women with a complete approach to this vital life passage. She's committed to showing women just how to access the practical and the mysterious and become the fullest expression of their wonderful selves. And I've only had a couple of quick conversations with Debs previously, but you are a wonderful self, and I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, you've touched me, Katie. Thank you, and inspired me. That's brought a couple of tears, so I know the energy is flowing beautifully for all of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And just for all of us this morning, I did a little reading, which I'd like to share at the end if we have a couple of minutes.
Yes.
For the group, so the energies that are here to help us resource ourselves.
Thank you. Let's definitely do that. I love that idea. Thank you. Absolutely. Well, how about we start with, I think people's stories, people's individual journeys are so powerful. So would you mind just starting by sharing as much as you're willing and able to share about your own menopause journey?
Of course, of course. I didn't know about menopause in any way other than my periods might stop in my 50s, blah. You know, that was probably about it. My mother had died tragically quite young, so I had very little family experience to work with, except that sex and discussion of women's matters were pretty taboo. You know, sanitary towels were kept in the airing cupboard, shh, and you never let anybody know. And, you know, that was about my sex education. So fast forward, I'm 48. My husband and I have just parted, and my periods that had been quite regular suddenly started to become erratic. Now, looking back, I was 48. If I look back for the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of other stuff had been kicking off emotionally and psychically as well. But I didn't piece all of this together at that point. It sort of coincides with the drop in estrogen levels. So at 48, I'm out there, a wild woman, you know, released from marriage, looking for a lover, looking to have some fun, a little bit looser and floppy around the edges, and suddenly my body's not behaving. And yes, I went to the Chinese doctor and I went to my own GP. I got a similar prognosis from both of them. Yes, you started your menopause. They didn't say perimenopause then. Right. And I almost wanted to sit on the floor and bawl. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Don't you understand? I'm not ready. I haven't finished all the things I wanted to do. You know, it felt like the end of my life. And I remember walking away from the doctors, particularly when they'd read my hormones. And she said to me, well, we can offer you 2 things, really. You can have hormone replacement therapy, or maybe you need a bit of antidepressants, because, you know, life was quite tough in the background to this. And I just shook my head. And she said, no, I didn't think you would. And I walked away from the surgery. And I remember seeing my feet on the ground. I remember that moment, and I'm thinking, I'm going to figure a way through this. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure this out. And it took me all of 10 years, I suppose. But I didn't know that. That moment of commitment, and I've had them before, was actually the seed of what emerged a couple of years ago, which was, in short, a dream. And I might have told you, Katie, it was a very unambiguous dream. You know, there was no messing about, Deborah Elizabeth. This is what you're going to do. And in the dream, there are 4 packages, beautifully wrapped in brilliant coloured paper, different colours, emeralds, silvers, gold. And each package had a name on it: physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. And in the dream, my inner knowing said to me, now you have the skills in these 4 areas. You have to go out and help women to go through the maze of initiations that are perimenopause with these gifts. Full stop, very simple. I woke up in the morning and went, right, really?
This has changed my whole career direction.
Changed everything, absolutely everything again. And as I stood there brushing my teeth, thinking on it, I suddenly, pieces of the jigsaw puzzle started to literally zoom into place. So, yeah, my menopause was not a breeze. I was erratic, foul-tempered, and exhausted at times. But with, you know, the things that happened, the people I met, the things that I was led to, are very much part of the fabric of what I've woven together to help sisters wherever they are, at whatever stage they're starting from, to come through what I believe is our biggest initiation in the physical body.
Yeah. Well, now that you're saying that, how about, I mean, can you share what you, beyond the physical symptoms, what do you believe perimenopause is, and menopause, if you could define them, and beyond the physical, what is it? What do you think it is?
Well, what I think it is, perimenopause is a pause. It's a place between 2 lives. It's a passage between 2 lives. Menopause, you know, technically it's the 12 months after your last menstrual period. It's just that one day. Nature has been one of my greatest teachers. And what nature really urges me to share is this isn't a punishment. It's not the end of a life. It's not the taking away of something, you know, not giving you something back. It's actually your bonus. This is what nature told me. She said, you go through this long productive cycle as women. You might produce a work project or a baby or something, but you're geared, literally your DNA is programmed to be producing in a particular, more cyclical than men, but still productive. When you go into perimenopause, and if you can be as mindful as I would have everybody be, I would teach this to our youngsters, that you're going to mine the greatest of your gems in that passage, and you're going to bring them into another life, and you're going to really enjoy and express them. This is your bonus. This is your, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence say we have another third of our life to live. So what would you do if you were that 15, still untamed 15-year-old with all of your wisdom and all of your dreams still intact? What would you do? And this is what nature told me. She said, it's not just about us enjoying it and expressing it. It's like the fruit that falls from the tree. The tree can't help but produce fruit.
Yeah.
And the fact is, when that fruit is ready, other people will benefit, whether you are set out to do that or not. They just will by your presence, if nothing more.
I love that piece about harnessing your the exuberance and excitement and optimism, of your 15-year-old self.
And what can I do when I want to be a this or a pilot or a dancer or she hasn't gone away.
No. It's a chance, because we've got, look, I'm 43 and I'm in perimenopause. I've got so much life left.
Oh, and more. Even more than Katie Phillips, because, as these things happen, as your estrogen levels drop, you get more life force energy coming into your body, your kundalini, effectively, which technically flows in and out with your menstrual cycle. You see, there's a magic here. That gate, the out gate in the base chakra, and I hope if anybody's listening and I'm talking now in wafty bollocks terms, please forgive me. What I'm saying is,
go for it. Be you.
Most of our life force is invisible. Let's face it, we're quantum beings. We're made up of particles so small, they have to now give them, names. Even a quark is the smallest thing. And most of the time, we are happily not conscious of this in a sense, because we need to get on with stuff. But midlife, there's a yoga perspective on this, and the Mahadeva, the great spirit, the over-presiding spirit of this time, is called Bagalamukh. And she wants to pull you inwards. She's often shown as holding a noose around your neck. And she's holding the tongue of a demon. And this is one of the lessons of preserving our energy, because the sacral chakra and the throat chakra are very connected. So we learn how to conserve energy. We learn how to come really inward and reflect. In my work, I use shamanic practice to help cleanse and purify the lower energy levels. And I use a technique that came through in a dream about harnessing new archetypes for ourselves and birthing them, because this is spiritual maturity at every level for me. It's rewriting your own astrological story. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's fun and it's challenging and it's messy and it's frustrating and it's all the things nature and spirit are.
Yes.
They're not anodyne, bland. We're not done because we're sitting around thinking pure thoughts. We're in a cauldron and we become our own chalice and our own cauldron at this time.
Yes, I can feel that. I feel that now. And it's so interesting because I really relate, when I realized, and it was only a couple of months ago, and it is what sparked this interview series, because as I've said already in the previous interview, I'm doing this totally selfishly. I am on a learning journey right now. I want to understand menopause, and I want to have the most positive experience of it. But when I first realized I was in perimenopause, I instantly felt old. I felt like my life was over. Not that I've got at least another half plus some probably to go, actually. I felt like it was over. I felt really let down by life. Like, why is this happening to me? I'm 43. Why? And the more I'm speaking to people like yourself, I'm starting to realize it's a catalyst for incredible change and a different way of knowing myself, different way of loving myself, different way of being in the world, of taking the essence of who I am and amplifying it and really being of service. Yeah, it's actually really exciting.
Very. And culturally, we have very little to take us through this passage. There's a lot of doom and gloom. Rightly or wrongly, we live in an age which almost deifies youth.
Yeah. Yes.
And the pursuit of youth and the pursuit of youthfulness and being young are two very different things. Youthfulness is a sense of being alive all the time. That continues forever. That's eternal, actually, I believe.
Yeah,
that's never going to go
got
away.
That. You are embodying that right now, which is why I'm loving it. Yeah.
Well, just so people have some comfort, I'm a woman of modest means. I'm 62 this birthday. I've worked with the simple tools that I have. Nothing's been fixed. There was a moment when I had a much younger lover, my first really much younger lover, that I did go to a laser clinic, but when I realized I hadn't got a clue what they were talking about, and I really felt in my body's going, don't have one of those things pointed at me, I had a word with myself. But it is the forces that you can bring into your body and your psyche that are available to you if you take on the challenge. Now, some people cope and they manage and they settle. That's a choice. And some people don't want to settle. They want to expand. And I say what you say, Katie, we keep amplifying our soul essence, and the resources always available, but they're not where we think they are, because they ain't out in the world necessarily. It's not, the next face cream or the next exercise class. They help, but it's the invisible resources. Go, Katie.
This is it. This is an awesome point. So what is it? Are we being called? Are we being called to stop looking outside of ourselves and to move within?
Yes. Bagalamuk, the whole essence of this period is to help you find all the things that you will always need. Because the greater and amplified signal you are at a quantum, I always put it like this: it's Alice through the looking glass. In the first half, if you like, of our lives, we're taught to do so that we can have, so we can be. So do, have, be, do, have, be. Do this job, do this thing, have this money, have this outcome, be happy, be safe. You take a passage, you take a journey, it's a bridge. Perimenopause can be likened to a bridge or Persephone's underground experience. And at this point, you're asked to fully go into your heart and flip this paradigm round. So instead of do, have, be, it's be, have, do. Be, have, do. And in finding what your resources truly are, you claim what I have a program called Claim Your Crown. Because you find that you've got resources that can never be taken away from you. They're indestructible, literally. They're eternal. But it takes courage, because the amplification of you comes from the heart, literally, as an energy force field. And until I think even, biblical reference for me was Christ saying you have to go through the eye of a needle. It's harder for a man to go, through a camel to do this than a rich man. I think he's talking about the tussle between the first half of our life, which can be very solar plexus, not holy, but very solar plexus based, into the land of the heart. Dorothy's journey, I call it, in one way. Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, absolutely.
So she's got her ruby shoes, which is her base chakra, so she can get home.
Yeah.
And she's on her way to the Emerald City, which is the color of the heart.
Yes.
And she's walking the yellow brick road, which is the solar plexus.
Perfect. You and I right now have the energy of our conversation at the moment is very positive. We're quite excited and optimistic about this experience. And from a spiritual perspective, I think there's no denying that it is an exciting opportunity to go through menopause. But, a lot of women do have really horribly difficult experiences of menopause, and then some don't. I was just interviewing Deborah Garlick a moment, an hour or so ago, and she said that 25% of women don't have any menopausal symptoms at all. They kind of sail through, don't even really know it's happened, and then suddenly they don't have their periods anymore, and boom.
True.
But a lot of women really do have a struggle through it. And so what would you say to them? And maybe even what would you say to them with regard to the spiritual aspect? Because it's a bit like, yeah, this is all very nice, but I'm really suffering.
Start with, I always say this, get the emotional and the physical balanced first. Right? The spirit's running anyway. Spiritual experiences are our physical experiences, actually. We've always got something that's telling us where we need to pay attention. The spiritual experience is almost always afterwards, in a sense, when you grow into it, you feel the expansion. So my work always starts with helping a woman to get her physical and emotional life on an even keel.
Right.
And that can take many forms. So diet, nutrition, rest, yoga, the right kinds of physical practices, cleaning up our emotional relationships, working with it. It's all energy, Katie.
Yes.
So it's to be amplified, but first it needs to be purified. And this is the way of the goddess. It's the way of the woman, is purification. And that's not to do with, being so pure that you never have sex or you don't want a Big Mac. It's not that kind of purity. It's understanding that our energy system is malleable. and we have the power to move it, to become our own shaman.
Yes. Yeah, and I think menopause is very much calling us to, it is an opportunity to kind of clean up the past so that we can enjoy the next half of our life. And a lot of that cleaning up is emotional clearing and healing. And if we don't do that, we're going to get sick. I mean, it's the emotional pieces that have the physical effect, right?
Sure.
So perhaps a lot of our tougher physical symptoms at this time are really, as you say, it is a spiritual journey, because it's our spiritual truth saying, you got some work to do, sweetheart. You're here to evolve, and your body is just reflecting back where you haven't healed emotionally. What haven't you paid attention to in the first half of your life? Let's do that now, so that you can have your spiritual evolution, which we need to have here. This is very interesting.
Well, you're smack on the money, actually, Katie, because in an ideal world, we'd have done this work by the time we were 44, pretty much where you are, because our Uranian expansion happens between the ages of 38 to 44. So we're going, everything's upward spirals. Life is an outward expanding spiral from the Big Bang, let's say.
Okay. Oh, we're getting now. Go.
The power of Uranus comes through when you're about 38 to 44. And in a world where we understood, we had less cultural binding and limitations on what we dare to talk about and how we were raised and what we need to do, we would understand, as you have intuitively, that this is the time for the emotional cleanup. Actually, perimenopause is the time to go within and to go on the Chiron bridge when your Chiron return happens between the ages of 48 to 52. So nature has it planned very neatly for us if we were aligned to the power of the passages as they're offered. So absolutely, when I got to 48, I had a lot of emotional backup, if you like. My pipes were clogged. I had to get some of that poop scooped. I'd been doing a lot. It's true. I'd been doing an awful lot since I was 44, but there was still some to go.
Right.
And so I don't want to comment, because it's so painful and personal when you're hurting and you're exhausted to even know that there's a link between what's happening to you. Everything's now, you don't have to go do past life regressions or anything. Have a look. What's going on?
Yeah.
What's working, what's lifting and nurturing you, and actually what, honestly, when we pull down the conditioning, the walls that tell us how we should be, is hurting you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great perspective. I think it's a really key takeaway from this series, actually, is to understand the link between what's happening to us physically and how it is a signpost for what emotionally needs cleaning up and healing. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. I'm going to pause for 1 second and just mention to everybody that's watching live, I didn't say this in the beginning, but you do have a chance towards the end of the interview to ask Debs your questions. So you'll see, if you're on, well, you are here on Zoom, there's a little box at the bottom that says Q&A. If you just click that, you can type in your questions, and when we, in a few minutes time, I will read your questions out to Debs. So if you have anything at all, she's like the expert, and she's here for you.
I am.
To answer your questions. Yeah, 100%. So use this time, please. And
please do.
No question is a bad question or a wrong question. It's really amazing that your question is going to help so many people. Beyond that, this is being recorded. There's thousands of women are going to end up watching this interview, and your question is, although it might seem unique to you, it will be universal. So please don't hold back. Please ask Debs your questions. Okay, Debs, I want to talk a little bit about menopause in the workplace, because you do a lot of work with women who are working, career women. I think we are, there's so many more women who are working longer these days. And I think a lot of women are hitting the peak of their career. Like they're there, I've arrived, and then boom, menopause. And it can be a real shock, because they're at the top of their game, and and then they've got this something that they don't understand because people historically haven't been talking about it, and it's taking them by surprise. And they're likely probably still managing kids at home and elderly parents, and they've got this career. Oh my gosh. So what are you doing? What are you seeing in the workplace? How are you supporting women in the workplace? How can women be having conversations to get more support in the workplace? Can you speak to
I can, and I'd love to. It's vital. It's vital. I mean, just to step back, you know, having financial security is valuable, particularly at midlife when other things feel as though they're collapsing around us. We might want to make choices. And so I think if you love your job or you're happy in your job, trying to maintain that role is really important. So yes, there are shifts. There are some workplaces actively promoting perimenopause policies now and working on that as a cultural norm. But let's talk practicalities. I've thought about how I approach this, and it's three-pronged in a way. The first thing is for the woman to get really clear about what support she needs. Now, this is an important aspect of the passage anyway. So maybe to have a conversation with a buddy, you know, as what is it that I need from my workplace? Because it's best not to turn up without a solution. If you're going in to negotiate for something, you want to come from a place of power. I don't mean arrogant power, I don't mean cold, I'm sorted.
What you need, like knowing yourself well enough.
You want to know yourself well enough. So if you're exhausted and it's an issue, would it help if you had, you know, some later starts, for example? So there's a conversation that the other person can hear. Now, the other person, ideally at first, should be your line manager. But I know from working in organizations, the relationship with your line manager and the culture of the organization you're in might make that feel really awkward. Not everywhere, but it might make that feel really awkward. So perhaps you might even look for an older woman in the organization who you feel you could trust and ask to mentor you through this time. How would she approach it? So, you know, I've had opposite ends of the spectrum. I've had women say, I will never have that discussion at work. It's very male dominated. My take on that is, come on, we all need to step up now because we have to protect and preserve our role and our place in the workplace because it's important to us and it's important to society.
Yes.
The downside is, of course, that when you're not efficient and you're perhaps making errors or you're foggy thinking or your temper's short and you haven't explained that, it might look like an inefficiency to your line manager who might then think that your performance is falling, and that's not a conversation you want to have. So be proactive. I think that's the first thing. It could be something simple like, look, you know, I just would like to sit near a window, or could you get me a fan on my desk? Or there are times when I'm just going to need to step out. I just need you to understand why. It's going to depend. But again, it's each woman's challenge and responsibility to ask herself, okay, so what's going to help make this better? In cases, it's been time off work. Ultimately, I'm talking about the psychological contract here. And I started with that first. I could have gone to the physical contract. I could have said that if you've been in employment for 26 weeks or more continuously, you have a right to ask for flexible working, which you do. You only have a right to ask for it. Your employer does not have a right to grant it. So again, the onus would be on you to show how, if you weren't performing, 37 hours, you were going to do 20, how would the other 17 be taken care of? Who would do it? Would it be hard on the team? So again, it's take some time, come up with a couple of things. And if you're going to talk to your boss, have a strategy at the back of that saying, and look, boss, I know how we could do this. I'm going to take all this admin stuff and just do it at home on a Friday. Or so you're maintaining your power and you're in the situation.
Yeah.
If you have an employer or a situation that's totally unsympathetic to you, you've got a harder job. There's no point in me sort of trying to candy coat it. You just have, and you have to decide what's healthy for you. Again, I say finding a mentor is a good thing. I wouldn't go in like guns blazing and take the physical contract because you're just going to shock everybody. And then you want a conversation, because a lot of the healing for women around menopause is about the voice. It's about having your power heard in the world.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably, without going over it too many times, you've got the psychological contract that's already in place. It's the bit we never talk about at work, in the workplace. It's really why we're there, because it ain't just the money usually. And you've got the law to support you to a degree. You may need to go to a doctor and get a sick note. Again, that takes you down another route, which can be quite difficult, because once you start taking sick leave, obviously HR become involved. They're protecting you, they say, but they're also protecting their insurance premiums, because at 26 weeks, those premiums for you just shoot up, baby. I know. I've worked both sides of the line. I'm just going to move, Katie, because I need a bit more power. So I hope that's helpful. I'd say practice finding what you want, and then find the best method in your company of having that conversation.
It's really helpful. And something that's kind of flagged up for me while you were speaking was just, I feel like this time of life it's an opportunity as well to practice more self-compassion and self-forgiveness, and not having to be so perfect. I mean, I even noticed in putting together this series, which, it's no small feat, bringing together 19 people in 1 week across different time zones.
How do you?
Well, actually, it was remarkably smooth and easy, because the universe totally told me to do this. I didn't wake up one day and go, I know, I'm going to put together an interview series. I was guided to this. It needed to be out there, and we need to be having these conversations to remove the shame and stigma, which is probably another thing that's stopping women from even feeling comfortable to speak about it in the workplace, because there is still that kind of shame and embarrassment around such a natural thing. So that's what we're doing here, and that's what the amazing work that you're doing in the world is achieving. But it's this piece about, so I'm setting up this interview series, and I made some mistakes. I had one of the experts, this phenomenal woman in Australia who I'm interviewing tomorrow, and I hadn't included her picture on the social media graphic of all the experts. She wasn't there, and I didn't notice. I just didn't realize, and I've sent out emails addressed to the wrong person, and they're kind of little things, all fixable, whatever. But I could get the old whip out. You're not good enough. There's that bloody brain fog again. Get it right. But actually, I feel like at this time, particularly knowing that I'm in perimenopause, and knowing that I am a little foggier than usual. I'm not as switched on. I'm not like, I'm just not. And as you know, we spoke a couple of days ago. I've been sleeping a lot the last week. I'm having a lot more rest. I've actually not been very well. I've needed it, but really listening to my body and really realizing that that's what my adrenals need at this time of my life, and really allowing that and not having to be perfect. And maybe in the workplace, it's even if you have an assistant or a colleague, just have them read over an email before you send it.
Sure.
Just ask for that support and help, and not expect you to be the perfect one that gets everything right all the time and is firing on all cylinders, because
that's really beautiful. And it is a time in our life when we're starting to teach others. We're dispersing our wisdom. That's the next age after, in yogic terms, it's dispersal. Being seen as fallible is very helpful to other people. And, it's very helpful. And stepping forward and asking for your needs to be met. I think it's not just about the individual. We're a sisterhood. And when we think of the women coming into the workplace now, if you think about, perhaps if you have daughters or nieces or grandchildren, you'd want to do something to break the turf for them. Yes. So when the challenge gets tough, that's what I say to myself, just remember that there are unseen people that you're helping with your bravery here.
Yeah, they really are. I love that. I might take a question. We have a question, so let's pause and take a question, shall we? Jean. I wonder if it's the same Jean that was asking questions in the last interview. I love this. Hello, Jean. I'm interested to know what you believe may have been the cause of my migraines in perimenopause for the first time ever. By the way, Jean, I relate. I have been headachy for a little while. It's the oddest thing. It's not something I've ever suffered. I strongly believe in spirit and alternative medicine and healing. My GP told me it was a coincidence.
Well, thank you, Jean, for a wonderful, rich question. I always smile when people say a coincidence, because when you look at the meaning of the word, it's just two things happening together, isn't it? Coinciding, co-meaning together, and incidents coming together. There's never really, nothing can happen by accident. Otherwise, the quantum field would collapse and, the birds wouldn't get up in the morning. That's what I say. The sun would get confused. It's all working perfectly. Migraine at a metaphysical level can be way too much going on mentally. Way too much. It's like overwhelm on and some. It can also have sexual underpinnings. It can be sexual energy that's not been expressed. I don't know if that resonates with you. Migraine can be relieved, and this is a joyous piece of news, I'm not ashamed to say, by orgasm.
Brilliant. More orgasms, please. Less headaches.
Yeah, fewer headaches. There will be triggers. They could be dietary, often dietary causes, but it's what's behind the dietary cause, isn't it? Why do we choose to eat those foods at that time? What else is going on? I had one migraine in perimenopause myself. I couldn't get my head off the pillow. I felt like somebody had put a wood chopper's axe in my head. It was almost comical, except that I had a very busy day, and I had to lie there stuck like a butterfly pinned, for hours while this thing passed. And it was overwhelmed. I'd taken too much on. I was learning too many new things. There was a whole sort of crash, and the migraine happened. Like I say, I'd love to know a little bit more about the whole picture. But as the Kundalini pressure builds in the body, very often, if there are limitations maybe in the sexual field, and that doesn't necessarily mean sexuality with another person, that can also, because the release valve isn't there, I suppose, in a sense, that can also exacerbate this, and then it really happens up here in the brain center.
Actually, Debs, you're leading into a subject I did actually want to touch on with you today, if we had time. I know we're 45 minutes in, but we started a bit late. Can we just quickly take a look? I don't know if it's a subject that we can quickly look at, but sexuality and sensuality during perimenopause. Yeah, what's the role of that? Because I think that might tie in nicely for Jean. And thank you for your question, Jean.
Well, a couple of things can happen that can be quite unnerving. From just general loss of libido, I don't feel like having sex, and maybe you've been sexually interested and active, and that suddenly seems like a denial of your womanhood, another coffin in the nail of this is the end. There may be physical reasons that sex is no longer attractive, vaginal dryness being one of them, exhausted, sweaty. All of these things can seem to put a stop to what has been a functional sexual life. And I also see this as an opportunity to broaden and deepen sexuality into something that's it has even more intimacy and more sensuality in it. So the reliance isn't so much on the form of physical ways of expressing that. I'm going to give you an example, because that's just like a lot of concept. So for a woman, it can be quite tiring to have sex during perimenopause. Literally, that's a lot of physical energy. It's a fair few calories that you might not want to give. So there's a lot around the emotional handling of that with your partner if you have one. But for yourself, you can offer alternatives. Why don't you read erotica to each other? I actually wrote an erotic and recorded a series of erotica at that time to channel some of my sexual life that wasn't being channeled. I found somebody who actually paid me to do it, so I think it's still out there under my pseudonym.
Amazing. I love that. Okay.
That's just a little example. I mean, self-love and self-nurturing and self-pleasure need to feature more highly, but it could be becoming more intimate with just lying with somebody and sharing what's in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
It's a call
really in your
for deeper
heart.
intimacy, isn't it? And again, it's that piece. It's about going within rather than looking outside, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
What can you do with what you have
mm,
and
mm,
who you are? And sometimes that forces you, because you've got no longer the resources to do it the way, what is in my heart? What would I really like in terms of sex? Would it be sensual, just to sit down together over a candlelit dinner and feed each other delicious food and it not end in intercourse?
yes.
Would that be wonderful? Perhaps I'd love somebody to bathe me. Could you fill up my bathtub with rose petals and then come and rub my back, or give me
Mm,
a sensual massage, and it not lead to intercourse? And to let your partner know that they're serving you the highest possible way. And actually if they have sexual needs, they need to take responsibility for their orgasm or not orgasm too, which
yeah.
might mean deepening the conversation with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I love all of what you just said. Why do you said something in there around self-care and self-love and self-pleasure is so important at this time. Why?
Well, you're teaching yourself to amplify what actually has got to be your dominant signal in life. Now, if you can't give it to yourself, you're really operating on half power.
Yeah.
You're expecting somebody else to be able to fill that void. And that, sisters, as we know, is a gig you really shouldn't give to anybody else. It's got to be one of the big lessons. It's wonderful when it happens. It's a massive amplification. But we are the guardians and the custodians and the nurturers of our own life force.
Mm.
If you don't know what pleasure feels like delivered by you, you're going to have a hard time verbalizing that or expressing that to somebody else without you getting lost. This is a time to find yourself, not lose yourself.
Yes, yes. High five to that. Yes, it is. We've had another question come in from Julie, who also asked a question on the previous interview. So this is great. Thanks for joining us all day, guys. I've been trying to understand why we have a problem with temperature control during post menopause. It seems that from a medical point of view, they don't really know why it happens. I've heard that possibly it's an electrical imbalance, and the author recommended grounding. From a spiritual point of view, what do you believe they are representative of this physical manifestation? I'm trying lots of things to balance these tropical moments. They're not accompanied by sweats, by the way.
Okay, Julie. Well, thank you. Again, a question for millions of women. And yes, medicine is still talking about the hypothalamus that also controls temperature as it controls hormones in the hypothalamus. Sorry, I know you are spiritually, but just a bit of context there is trying to send a signal to the ovaries saying produce, and it wants a kickback, wants to get that message, receive that loop completed, and it doesn't. So apparently it sort of amplifies its signal, which also then is a signal that's on the same systems telling your body to heat up. Spiritually, for me, it's life force coming into the body. So it's that good old kundalini that no longer goes out with your menstrual flow. More and more of it's coming into you. I do recommend grounding. I recommend not just grounding, I feel into your earth star, so 6 inches below your feet. So run your 2 lines of force, male and female, through your feet into the earth star. Okay, because that's the grid we're using. And then stand and breathe. Bring your toes up and operate your foot up. Make your foot arches strong. We want to get in yoga we call it pada bandha working. We want that gate to be open. And breathe it into your heart. Just keep feeling that energy and allow it to go into your heart. For a cool down, I put a few drops of essential rose oil in some purified water, and obviously taking care you don't spray yourself or anybody in the eyes. A lovely spray over the heart space is really soothing, and it helps to make the veins just open up a little bit more to burn off some of that heat. But essentially, in one of my pieces of literature that I've written, it's about also just tuning into what was happening just before the flush. What were you thinking and what were you feeling? that's what you want to get hold of. Because by the time the flush has happened, your body, your energy system's already trying to burn it off for you. So you need to partner with the flush, really.
Interesting. So again, it's like the body is giving you some wisdom. It's a signpost, isn't it, to something else to pay attention to, perhaps. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. I hope that was helpful, Julie.
I do, Julie. Thank you. And blessings on your journey.
Yeah. And I love the idea of grounding. I think we need more of that in our lives, just to get our feet out in the earth, the sand, the grass. Yeah, I think that's super helpful anyway. Right, if there's no more, hold on, no, we have another question, Julie again. So when I'm sleeping and they come, is it related to my subconscious dealing with my day? I'm interested to know this. I have been suffering terrible hot sweats at nighttime. What's all that about?
Yes, well, your subconscious is going through a resorting process during the night. Mm-hmm. It never stops, does it? It's always happening. Yep. And sometimes you can get the craziest dreams in menopause as well. When I wake up, or when I woke up in the night at those times, again, I'd even keep, you know, those little freezer blocks you get for an esky or a cool box.
Yeah.
You could just wrap a little towel in one of those and just keep things cool and dim at night. Just cool yourself down a little bit. When I wake up in the morning, before I get out of bed, the first thing I do is I ground into my earth star. So I make sure that I'm connected.
So to be clear, your earth star, when you're standing, is 6 inches
below your feet.
Below your feet. So you're tuning into the earth.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It's very, poor old brain hurts because then you're lying in bed and like, oh, where's my earth star? I just sit at the end of my feet.
Yeah.
Because I'm the rotating hologram.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I want to align to the earth. Then I wake up in the morning, and that's if I wake up distressed in the night for any reason. It's rare now. I spray. So I have some rescue remedy, a couple of drops of Dr. Bach or similar.
Yeah.
And again, I just take a few slow breaths and ask myself, how am I feeling now? So get the feeling, because this is all about purification of feeling. And purification doesn't mean not having negative feelings or dark feelings. It actually means getting deeper into them and owning them.
Yeah. The whole spectrum of feelings.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Got it. I hope that was helpful, Julie. And I know you have a free gift for everybody watching, and you call it a Focus on You session, and they can book that
on my website. Yes.
So your website is debsdevries.com.
Exactly that.
Yeah, so it's Debs, E-B-S, DeVries, D-E-V-R-I-E-S.
DeVries, yeah.
DeVries.com. Thank you that's how you pronounce it. Is it DeVries? Right. debsdevries.com, and you can get a Focus on You session with Debs, which is so generous. Thank you.
Not at all. It's really important for women to be seen and heard at this time.
Yeah.
Things I do. And if you've got 2 minutes, Katie, I could just do the reading for us.
Please, let's wrap up with your beautiful reading. I can't wait.
So I'll get the cards. Bear with me, everybody. I'm just going to go and fetch them.
Okay.
As I do this reading, I want to acknowledge Transference Healing and Alexis Cartwright in Australia. She's actually in America at the moment, and she'll be in Bath in a couple of weeks, where I'll see her again as the anchor and channel and founder of this modality, Transference Healing.
Beautiful.
Always looks like that.
Okay.
Without whom I don't think any of this work would have been birthed.
Okay.
And the first card we have was Salmon, which is about inner wisdom in a nutshell. Going with the flow today, which we did, Katie. And did you notice as soon as we stuck with it and we got live, not a glitch?
It was literally, we're just going to trust the process, because for those watching, the technology crashed about 5 or 6 times before we started, and when we chose to just start, it stuck with us. So thank you.
It did. Salmon has an inner knowing, and you can see it's a watery element. It's about going into your, let's call it, sacral chakra, and finding out what the flows are there. But trusting that flow is taking you where you need to go, the way a salmon knows. It's a DNA. I do a lot of work with the DNA, and for me, this salmon knows how to get back to the most impossible place you can imagine without a map.
Yes.
We have that available to us. This is a quickie, but I love this card.
Oh, hello.
Tiger.
I love that.
Tiger's beautiful because its coat reminds us to balance the yin and the yang within us. And this is a time for doing this. This deep dive into our feminine self is necessary because most of us has been working on a slightly more male model.
Yeah.
A little bit more doing. And it's not that we actually become all floppy and inward forever. It's about alchemy. It's about androgyny, the black and the white together. So as we emerge from our journey in perimenopause, we know when to move forward and when to step back, when to receive and when to give. So Tiger, it's a very regal balance. Look at that, in its own country, in its own territory, completely balanced. And that's what I wish for us women, to be sovereign in our own lives. And Griffin, which I have to smile because I don't get this one very often, and I got it yesterday as well. Griffin is really about empowerment. And what does empowerment mean? Honestly, it means, for me, making great choices for yourself. Yes. On a regular, on a minuscule, practice with little things. If you're going to employer, get clear with somebody else before you go. Empower yourself to make the most holiest supporting choice for yourself.
Yes.
Empowerment isn't only, being able to afford great shoes or having a spa day. It's about saying, actually, right now, I need to go and lie on my bed.
Yeah.
Right now,
right?
This is out of my boundary. I don't eat this late. I love you. I thank you for the invitation, but I'm going to take myself home to bed now. That's true empowerment. Knowing what you feel, knowing what you need, and speak it in the world in a way that can be heard and is a win-win situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that just nails it, doesn't it? That is exactly what menopause is offering us as an opportunity, is to really to become our most empowered selves, and to activate the feminine as well, which is what the other card was saying with the tiger, with the, because we've been doing life too in the masculine for too long, and it's a time to really reclaim our femininity.
Yes, Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, my darling, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you and all the amazing work that you're doing in the world. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. And thank you, Katie. It's been such a satisfying conversation. When you feel like you've had a really good meal, it's like, love it. And thank you, Katie. From my heart, absolutely from my heart to yours. This is a conversation that's so not just needed, but of its time. This is the time.
It really is.
So good for you, girl. Keep going.
Is. Thank you so much. And I will make sure that I get a copy of this recording to you so you can share it far and wide. And thank you, everybody who has managed to join us live. It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you for the questions. And stay tuned. We've got another interview this afternoon with Julie Dennis, and we've got way more coming for the rest of the week. So watch this space, and please put out your prayers for continued tech reliability. Thank you. All right. I love you, Debs. Thank you so much.
I love you, Katie. Love to all your beautiful listeners too. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.